Okay, so our stream is up now and we can get started. All right, so we're going to continue from where we left off the last time. And today we are going to be focusing mainly on views and URLs. So, a quick recap of what we did the last time. We went through the Django project, how to create a Django project. And when you create a Django project, the various files that you find in there, we try to find what each and every one of them is doing in there. Then also we opened the settings.py file to take a look at exactly what is in there and their role. One thing that I mentioned, which I remember very well, is that in Django, a lot of things are configurable. And for everything to work together, a lot of them stand on their own. So if you make changes here and you want the whole application to be aware that you've made those changes, I hope my audio is good enough. Feels like it's harsh. I don't know. Guys, let me know. Is the audio okay?
It's very okay on my end.
Okay, great. Happy to hear that. Oh, Dr. Chuck. I like that man. Yeah. So I took his those times when PhD. Yeah, I took one of his PhD courses, I think in 2018, I guess. So I remember him and his office hours. All right, great. So let's get back on track. We looked into the file, the settings.py and everything in there. And I mentioned that a lot of the things in Django are configurable in the sense that a lot of the things are sitting by themselves. So we have a lot of things in there, but they are not even aware of the existence of the others. So anytime you make a change or you make some changes, you have to let the others that are going to use it know that, oh, okay, I've made this change. And as we approach some of the practical things that we're going to do today, you would see exactly where you need to make what change. So those are like the key things that you need to know. And these do not change. Like it's the same thing irrespective of the application you are building. So every time you are making a change here, you know that okay, if I make a change to this, for it to take effect, I need to go and update that. So just pay attention to that, and we all will be good. So today we are focusing more on let me bring out my pen, URLs and URLs and views. Those are the two things that we are focusing on. Remember that we said Django follows what we call the MVT architecture. And the MVT, where M is models, T is template, V is views. So today we'll be discussing the V part. And in our next session, we'll look at the models and the template part. But to be able to appreciate what the view part is doing, you should remember from our last session. And that was the reason I recommended that every one of us should review what we did the last time. From our last session, we talked about the HTTP request response cycle. And I hope you all do remember that. So we talked about this and also the exact thing that goes on through to the end, right? And one of the things that I remember stressing enough was what URL is and even the full meaning of URL. And we all got to know that, oh, this is a resource locator. So anytime you input a URL, it allows us to locate a particular resource. So in the same way, when we put any URL in our browser and we are trying to access a website, it is going to take us to our server, if or what you call the web server, and the web server will determine whether to interact with our web framework or not. If it interacts with our web framework, that is where the most important thing that we are going to talk about today. I mean, the first thing we are talking about today is coming in. So you go to, say, google.com, and let's assume that google.com slash my app. Let's assume that google.com slash my app is a website that is running Django. The request that you are making is known as an HTTP request. This will be sent, that request will be sent to the web server. The web server will check it. If it requires some more information, it doesn't know how to process that, and maybe that is supposed to be processed by the web framework, then that request will be forwarded to your web framework through the web server gateway interface. We talked about all of this last time. So if you don't understand any of these plenty things I'm saying, please just visit the last session that we held and you'd get the full understanding of that. Now, this web server gateway interface is now going to pass the URL, which we technically call the route. So the route is, that is a path to where you are looking for. You are looking for a resource, right? So that path will be passed to our application. So it means that the first point of contact with the actual application that we are going to build is the route. So the first thing you need in every web framework is a route handler, apart from the service. So the server is what will receive the request that is coming in and determine what to do with the request. But as soon as the request has been sent to our application, it is coming in a form of a route. So we say we need a route handler. That is what is going to tell us, oh, for this particular route, or for you are looking for this particular resource, go to this part to be sorted out. Okay, so in our application, we are supposed to work with or create what we call the route handler, the file that will be handling all the routes. And in Django, the route handler is the url.py file. I think it's even plural, urls.py file. So that file is where we would be handling all the routes, and you'll find out how to do that soon. Then, based on the route, we can then say that for this particular route, this is exactly where you go. We will point that to a view. So from the route, we point it to a view. And the view is going to be where the logic actually happens. And a whole lot of things can happen in the view. Today, we are not going to make it complex. I just want you to understand how the URLs, or in this case, our route handlers, how they work and how the view also works. And what is the relationship between the URLs and the view? That is what we are going to try to do today. So to help us recall all the things we've learned in the past and also bring it home before we launch fully into what we are learning today, we are going to start with a new project so that we all can recall the things we've learned. So let me bring up VS Code and so we call that one Django lesson 1. Let's open a folder, create here, let's create Django lesson 2. Django lesson 2. And let's open this directory. Okay, so quick one, just so we are all on the same path. How do I start a Django project? Anyone? How do I start a Django project? I've created a folder. I want to start a Django project. What's the very first thing I need to think about? Yes.
Hi, Doc. Think you need to
Hello.
get an environment.
Okay, so we want to create a virtual environment as a first option because we've learned here that by default, Python installs stuff globally, but we want to restrict our installation to just our project. So to create a virtual environment, the very first session, we looked at two options, but I said I prefer using the VENV. So Python -m, that is Python model VENV. And let's call our environment, say my ENV. That is how we are going to call it. And this will create the environment for us. So you can see that it has created this environment. And yeah, we have some pip has been installed in here. Some packages, Python packages have been installed in here. But what it means is that any package that we install, for as long as we install it whilst this environment has been activated, will be stored directly in this particular environment. So let's go on to activate our environment. To do that, we open the my env file, go to scripts, then inside script we have activate. We activate that. Great. I hope everyone knows this particular step. Now we have our environment activated. This testifies to that effect. What is the next step? What do we do next?
We install Django.
Okay, we need to install Django, but how do we install Django? We can use pip to install Django by saying pip install Django and hit enter. Okay, so let's see. Django should be installed. Okay, it's not done yet, but if we come here, this was originally not here. In fact, originally when I opened the lib, it was just a few folders in here, but now you can see a lot more folders. Django is here, so that tells you that Django has been installed. And now, yes, that is done. We have Django installed. What else do we do now?
We need to enable Django admin.
Okay, Django admin. Once Django has been installed, it's automatically enabled. What do we need it for?
To
start
start
a
our project.
Okay, great. So now we've already installed Django, but we've not started a Django project. So the next step is for us to start a Django project, and we can do that with the help of Django admin. So we say Django admin start project, and let's call this project. Let's say we want to build a website for company. What's the name of the company? Any name that comes to mind? My company. Okay. You people didn't come up with names. So the company is called My Company. So we say Django start project My Company. And if you remember, I talked in the first session, I talked about a bit of redundancy that usually comes if you don't put the full stop there. So you can ignore it or you can add it. Either ways, everything works fine. You just need to know that that redundancy would be present if you ignore it. And we argued around it. We found out that there are times that it may be important to have it. So yeah, we have My Company. The project has been created up here. And now you can see this underscore init we've already explained is there because for this to act as a package that we can import models from. Then we've explained this particular file. It is very similar to the web server gateway interface, except that it allows for asynchronous communication. And these things become important when you are going to production. When you are working locally, we have the local server that we are working with, so we don't need to bother much about it. So the two most important files are the settings.py file and the urls.py file. And today we'll be dwelling more on the urls.py file. We've already explored everything that is inside settings.py. If you do not remember, please go back to our previous session. Okay, So we have created a project. The next thing, what is the next thing that we need to do after creating a project?
You need to go into the directory.
But what would be the reason why?
We need to start the app.
Okay. So Django is such that last time I explained the difference between a project and an app. Now we've started a Django project, but for every part of the project, we can abstract it into an app. So let's say you are given a company's website to create. Right now, we are calling the company My Company. But assuming that this website has like the major pages, which is homepage, about us page, services, contact us, and any other relevant page. And it also has a blog. The blog in itself can be considered as one app. And when it comes to deciding what will stand on its own as an app, it usually comes with experience and also understanding the use case or understanding the requirement of the project you are working on. So it is not magic for you to know that, oh, this needs to be an app by itself, this other one needs to be an app. You have to plan it out and see what you want to be an app by itself. The thing that you should note is that apps can be transferable. So I can build an app here and copy that particular app and paste it in another Django application or project. So if I am building a company's website, I know very well that all the major pages, the home page, let's take four of them: home page, about us page, contact us, and services page. These are very popular pages that almost any website that I'm building, I may end up sending the same thing there. So what will I do? I can create one app for those things, and maybe I call those ones pages. Then there is also the blog part, and the blog parts can be extensive. We can talk about a lot of things when it comes to even the blog alone. You can look at the archive of the blog. We can look at the individual blogs. We can look at comments of the blogs, authors of the blogs, and all of that. So we can classify the blogging part as one app. That means that now we need to start with the very first app that we want to create. So for Django, this is how the steps are such. You install Django, but before then you make sure you activate a virtual environment. So you have your virtual environment activated, you install Django, then you start a Django project. After starting a Django project, you then need to create a Django app before you have anything. Besides, right now we can run the server and we have our basic Django app running. So we can try that. How do I run the server? Yes. How do I run the server?
Python manage.py run server.
Python manage.py run server. Okay. So let's see what we get. Oh, okay. In case when you use Django admin start project my company dot, can you start another project in the same directory where that project is compared to other? So that's the concern that was raised the last time we discussed it. It is possible, but you may have to go and change the name of your database file for the next project. Otherwise, all those two projects will be using the same db.sqlite3 database file. And also, when it comes to manage.py, it means they will all be using the same manage.py. If you don't want any conflicts like that, then you can go ahead and ignore that full stop and have every one of them separate. So that is one of the ways that you can consider it. All right, let's go. Let me bring this here. So you can see that this is a page by default. This is what is created for us, but we haven't created any app yet. Let's proceed to that step and stop the server. Clear. I hope you guys can see when I go down there. And okay, I think I know what to do. All right. To start an app, we can call Python manage.py start app. And what will be the name of our app? Let's call it pages, so that this will be the app for our main pages. Now open this and you see, apart from my company, we have pages here as a directory. So this is an app in the concept of Django. This is an app, and we're going to open this to see. In here, there are migrations. The last time before I left the stream, I was trying to explain some of this. Let's not bother so much about migrations. We'll talk about it in our next session when we talk about models and templates. Underscore init underscore py, still making this a package so that we can import stuff from it. Admin.py, this is where we'll be managing how this appears on the admin dashboard. And you get to see it when we do our models. Then apps.py is where we configure this particular application. For now, we don't have to bother about it. Models.py is where we'll create the models for the particular app that we've created. Test, those of you who have learned Python test-driven development, you might know the importance of writing tests. But for now, let's not bother much about it. So today, what we are interested in is views. And if you remember what I said about views, it is the logic part of your project. That is where more logical reasoning or the business layer of your application, it determines what should happen when somebody tries to access something on your website. All of that reasoning is done in the views.py file. So we are going to see exactly how that is done today. And let's start from there. We say we are creating 4 pages. We have the home page, we have the about us page, contact us page, and also services page. Keep that in mind. 4 pages. We need to create all of those ones. Let me comment them out here. So we have home page. We have about us. We have contact us. We have services page. So these are the 4 pages that we need to create. When you talk about views, there are 2 types of views. We are going to focus on just one type for now. 2 types of views. We have what we call the function-based views and the class-based views. So those are the 2 types. Remember that. We have what? Function-based versus the class-based ones. All right. And we're going to focus commonly on a function-based. Subsequently, you would appreciate what a class-based is. But essentially, this is just Python. You know what a function is in Python and what a class is in Python. So when we do class-based views, it gives us the options of inheritance and all of that. But let's not focus on that right now. Let's focus more on the function-based ones. A view essentially is a function. So remember, I said we are focusing on the function-based. That's why I defined it as such. A view is a function that takes in an HTTP request and returns an HTTP response. That is why I took my time to explain the HTTP request response cycle during the last session. Okay, so I'm saying that a view takes in an HTTP request and returns an HTTP response. Okay. How does it do that? By now, if you are here, I want to believe you know how to create a function in Python. Guys, hold on, let me confirm something. Yeah, so I can see people are watching. Oh, did I make it private? Sorry, so I can see people are watching. So how is it private? Okay, it's not private, it's okay. Let me confirm something. Okay. Yeah, so those of you on YouTube, thank you. I sorry I didn't pay attention to the chat. You anyway, yeah. So what the name is energetic. Okay. Thank you for your comments. And yeah, we're going to try and make it as often as possible. But yes, we are running it on Zoom right now. Feel free to jump into Zoom. Let me drop the link in the chat. So it's a live session at the moment. Once you are watching it now, you can jump in here. And so that the goal is to have you have your questions answered instead of just watching without getting answers to your questions. So I'm dropping it in the chat. Find a link to the Zoom and you can join in here because I'll pay less attention to YouTube. But thank you all for joining. All right. So let's go on. Let me try and retrace my thoughts. What was I talking about? Yeah. So functions. You all know what functions are in Python. And we can call our function anything. But here, let's say def, that's the keyword you use when you are creating a function in Python, right? So def, for our home page, we are calling the function home. And I said it takes in an HTTP request. So the parameter that we put in here is request. And the content of, so for now, let me write pass so that it doesn't yell at me. But this is essentially what it looks like. We have a function, call it whatever you want to call it. Then it is taking the request. And I said it's going to return a response, the HTTP response. So for now, there are several other things that we can do when it comes to the return. But for now, I want us to directly return an HTTP response. So how are we going to do that? We need a particular model, or let's see, a class from, please pay attention to this. We are looking at HTTP. So you do Django.http. Then what are you importing? We want response. So you are going to import HTTP response. And we are going to use this to return the response. Okay, so I can write a return statement. And what am I returning? I'm returning this for now. Let's say H1 home page. Then let's close our H1. I want to believe that everybody knows the purpose of the H1, which is an HTML tag. Okay, so what we've done right now is anytime somebody is visiting our homepage, it will come to this particular function, and this function will return this thing to it. So what we can do is copy this for the other pages so that we speed up things. About this is about us page. Then we can do same for contact us. We call this contact and say contact us page. Contact us page. Then finally we'll have our services page. Services. So we call this services. Sorry, services page. Okay. Any questions up to here? So all that we have done right now is just creating functions. And this function is called home. It's taking in a request and it is returning an HTTP response. So that's why we had to use the class HTTP response and pass whatever content we want to pass to it. The same applies to all of this. Later, we're going to be able to add more logic. Like this is a function. You can create a function to do anything at all. You may want to take some input from the user, manipulate that input before you finally return something. But right now, our goal is to create a page that's the home page, about us, and all of that. But after we have created this, our website will not automatically know how to or when to display the home or when to display the about or when to display contact us or when to display services. That is where the route handler comes in. There's a route handler that will determine and see that, oh, this person has entered your website's name / home or / about us or / contact us. Therefore, we need to take this person to the home page or to the about us page. That is the work of your route handler. And remember that in Django, we said the route handler is being handled by what we call the urls.py. Okay, so if you come to our project page, where our project is called My Company. So inside here, you find the urls.py. And the good thing about Django is that we have comments that tells us exactly how to even do some of these things. So inside the urls.py, it's telling us the URL configuration for this particular project. That's My Company project. The URL patterns list route URLs to views. So what it's telling us is that the pattern, URL patterns, which is this one, what it does is that it lists routes URLs. So, okay, no. So he's saying this list routes URLs to views. So you pay attention here and you see that this admin will route to this admin.site.urls. And we are going to create our own and you would understand what is happening here. But I want to show you, if I go to this site and visit /admin, that is where it's going to take me. Okay. So not working because we have our server off. I canceled the server
The server
before.
is not running yet.
Yeah. So let's put it on. Now the server is running. Let's run this again. And you see that it redirects us to what is called Django administration. And next session, when we look at models and templates, we'll delve into how to access this. But for now, let's go back. All I wanted to show you is that when I put the /admin here, what's actually happening is that this particular thing that we have here is what is responsible for it. It is the first point of entry into your application or your project that, oh, this person has entered /admin. So let's try and catch it for the person. Let's try something else that doesn't exist and see what we get. So I've typed in /AFFF and it says page not found. Using the URL, let me zoom into it. Using the URL conf defined in my company.urls, Django tried these URL patterns in this order. 1, admin /. So that's the only one that you have. So that's the only thing it tried. And the AFF didn't match any of these. Remember, this is only showing because we have debug is equal to true in our settings file. So if you are going to put your work in a production environment, you would have to turn debug off. So you would have to come here and make sure that debug is debug. See here, it is true. So if you don't want those ones, then you have to come here and turn it to false so that it doesn't show anything even when something is breaking. See what is happening. Something is breaking, but it's not going to show us what is breaking. So let's go back. No, this thing has crashed. Sorry. If the bug is off, no, the server is no longer running. Sorry. Okay. So now it tells us that this is it. That's where the problem is. Now we want to connect our views so that anytime we make a request to say /home or /about us or /contact, it knows exactly where we are going to, right? That's what we want to do. And we can do that in the URLs, but I just remembered something that we need to fix as well. We have created an app, and I've told you already that in Django, everything stands on its own. The fact that you have created an app doesn't mean your project knows that that app exists. You see, this app we've created is called Pages, but the project is called My Company, and the project is in a directory that is separate on its own. So it's not even aware that there is Pages down here. What do you have to do for it to be aware? You have to come into the settings and install the app in this particular project settings. I'm using the word install because they called it installed apps. So all you need to do is to come and add the name of your app inside this particular list. So just here and say the name of your app is Pages. So you just register it like that. And now this particular My Company is aware that there is an app that has been created called Pages. So when I was explaining last time, I explained all of this to you, that these are apps for various purposes that already exist by default. But when you create your own, you would have to now come and install it in the sense that you just put its name in this particular list. I hope it makes sense and everybody is following so far. Any questions? Any questions on that? All right. So now we can proceed. Now our company project, My Company project, is aware that we have created the Pages app. So let's go to the URL and we need to register the URLs. So with that, we can also go ahead and say path. I was trying to show you, even if you don't remember, this note app here will give you every information you need. So it tells you that for function views, remember that we've talked about the function based and the class based ones. For function views, what you want to do is add an import that is from my app import views. So for this particular example, we have my app, the app we created is called Pages. So you say from Pages, import views. That's the prompt that that's giving you here. And the next thing is to add a URL to the patterns, and the URL will be in this format, right? So you can even copy that and paste here. It says path. Then this is the path. This is like when there is nothing in there, when the person just visits the home. Sorry, do I say home or not? Yeah, like in here, 127.0.0.1 column 8000, and they don't add anything, like no slash or nothing, where should it take them? Currently it's taking them here, but we can override that and take them wherever we want to take them, and that is what will be if we leave it like this. Okay, maybe you don't understand, but relax. If you don't understand it, by the time you do one or two of them, you will come to understand this. So now Remember that these views that we are calling is the views file. So when you come to pages, we have views.py here. So we are calling this particular file. We are importing this particular file. Once we import this file, we have access to home, we have access to about, we have access to contact, we have access to services. So if we come here and we do views.home, what this means is that if somebody goes to this particular URL, which is the base URL without anything at all, it should display this view that we have created called home. And that is what we have here. It would display this for us, and you see it soon when I run it. The next thing I want you to pay attention to. So we have, when you're creating the URL patterns, you're adding to the URL patterns, you have the path, and the path function takes in 3 arguments. The first one is the actual path you want, or you can say the relative path that you want to capture when the user goes to the site. And you can even provide regular expressions to catch a pattern. So whatever pattern the URL is, if it meets the pattern that you write here, then exactly that will be rendered. This view, so this part is the specific view you want to render. So we want to render the home view if the person goes to the base URL. And the last argument that we can add is name the URL or the path. Here we are calling it home. Remember, you can call it anything. And as soon as we start manipulating things, you would come to understand why we need a name for it. But it's easier to give it a name so that you don't always have to recall the path, the specific path that you provided here. It's very convenient to have a name that is easily going to be used for those purposes. And pretty soon you would appreciate why we have it. So let's save this and see for ourselves. Now, if we refresh this, you see that it takes us to home page. Why home page? Because we have captured that this path should take us to views.home. Without this line, that wouldn't happen. It takes us to the default one. This is being handled by Django itself. But whatever it is, we do not want to show this because this is just Django. We want our own stuff. So we will have to always add a pattern that will be captured for the specific view that we want. Okay. So now what if I want the about? So when you look into my app, the views of UI, we have the about us as well, apart from the home. In fact, we can even decide that this person, somebody needs to enter home slash. See, in Django, anytime you're creating the path, it's important to end with this slash. So pay attention to it. If I do it like this, home slash, what I'm saying is that for somebody to get access to that home page that I have created, they need to come here and type slash home. And that takes them to the home page. But now, if I do about, even though I have an about view, when you check the views, I have one for about, right? But if I do slash about here and hit enter, it says it wasn't found. And the path that it has tried so far is admin slash and home slash, but there is nothing for about. This means that we have not yet created the route or URL pattern for this about. So we need to go back to urls.py and provide that. So your path, we are going to provide about, then the about should take us to the views. I hope you remember where this views is coming from. This views here is coming from the views that we are importing from pages. And comma, let's give this name it about so that we can easily find it. Something seems wrong. Yeah. So this comma needs to be there. Okay. So now, if we go back and refresh our page, you see that it takes us to About Us page. In the same way, we can do same for the other two. This will be, say, Contact, and this will be Services, right? And this should be Contact. Should be a comma here, and this should be Services. And remember that these ones, you say views dot, there's views dot, that should match exactly what you wrote here. Should match what you wrote here. So if you make a mistake, let's say this was underscore here, and I have services. See, by default, my VS Code is giving me the color coding is not showing here. See, when I come here, I see this is blue for About, blue for Home, but not the same as views. Maybe you're not using VS Code, but you need to understand why this is not working. This views dot is gotten from this part. So you have to name it exactly what you called it here. Okay, so back to it. This is now working. Let's call this Services. We call this as well Services. Okay, and now when we come here and we check Contact, it should take us to Contact Us page. We check Services, it takes us to Services page, and we have to check Home to take us to the home page. Initially, we did it such that nothing should be entered before we get to the home page. So if we save this, it means that when you enter this, it's going to be wrong because we don't have any path for /home. We don't have any path for /home. But then if we get rid of the /home here, and that takes us to the home page. Does that make sense? How to create your patterns in the Django URLs.py. Guys, does that make sense? Or you guys have forgotten that I like hallelujah and amen?
Yes, Doc, it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Please, your name for contact. I think you missed
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah, Contact. Great. All right, so we are making good progress now. And I hope that every one of you will be able to create this kind of website where people can navigate to various pages. It's very easy. See, you've not done anything. You've not written like code. It's just configuration that you are doing here and there. Ideally, the most code would be written in the templates and maybe even the views, as well as the models that you create. I think the templates and the views are where the code will be. The rest is more of configuration. You need to know that anytime you add a view, before it can display, you'd have to capture it in the URLs. Very important. So up to this stage, I want to believe everyone is fine. We are about to zoom to another level. So if you don't understand anything here, that's the reason why we are on Zoom. Don't feel shy. Just unmute, ask your question, or drop it in the chat. I'm going to read it. Okay. Oh, okay. So Anne, thanks. Anne on YouTube. Thank you. Oh, say to like follow to the end and also rewatch from scratch again. Yeah, I mean, you can continue watching, and we have done some in the past. I'll add this particular video to the playlist so you can watch it. So I came across most where the URLs of PY for the apps were mostly created in the app folder. Yeah, so that's the level that we are getting into, and why we'll get to understand that shortly. But I want everyone to be on the same page before we jump into that part. So there is another level to where to keep your URLs. And I'm about to go into that, but I just want to make sure that every one of you fully understands what we have done so far. All that we have done is we created a Django project called My Company, and we started a Django app called Pages. Within the app, we have added some view functions, and these view functions are home, about, contact, services. Those are the functions, and all they are doing is they are returning specific HTML as the HTTP response. But before a user on our website can access any of these, we need to indicate them or add their patterns to the URLs, which we have done. Now, let's assume that our website is complete. People can now navigate to about us, contact us services. But we want to create for the blog. And we said that we wanted the blog to be a separate app, because after we have created the app in this particular project, it's even possible that we will need that same app, that same blog app in a different project that we are doing somewhere else. And we wouldn't want to copy everything from scratch, write every code from scratch. So we want to separate the blog. This means that we have to create a new, let me create the server. We have to create a new app. I hope we still remember how to create an app. Somebody help me. How do we create an app? Yes, yes.
Python manage.py start app
Okay.
blog.
Python manage.py starts app. Then we are calling our app blog. Okay, thank you very much. So this will create a new directory called blog. As you can see up here, we have blog and it contains migrations in it, admin. We are going to talk about most of these when we start talking about models and templates. But for now, we are interested in our views. So we are going to create some views here. Let me create one. Say the blog is going to take in a request, and this will also return, is going to return an HTTP response. So we need to import Django.http. Let's import, what are we importing? Import HTTP response. Okay. All right. Then let's return. We are going to return HTTP response. Let's have H1 tag that says blog and H1. Okay. Now let's see one issue that we are likely to run into. We have created two blocks now. And when we come here, initially we imported from pages. We imported views and called it views dot something. If we want, what about if we want the views from blog? How do we approach it? That will also mean that we'll now have to import views from blog. And if you write views.services, which of the app are you referring to? Is it the views from the blog or the views from pages? And what if you have thousands of apps? I mean, you may think it's not realistic, but in a very big application, that can be realistic. So for now, let's assume you even have up to 10 apps. Would this be ideal? And the answer is no, that wouldn't be ideal. So if that is not ideal, what would be the ideal way to approach it? The ideal way to approach this would be for us to take each app and segregate their route handlers for each app. So within the app itself, we are going to have to create urls.py so that we have all the relevant routes or URL patterns within the app itself. Remember, now we have two apps here. We have pages and we have blog. So if we come to blog, we can create a new file within blog called urls.py. And we can do same in pages as well and say urls.py. And inside this, we are going to cater for all the URLs for the pages app. And when we come to that of the blog, we are going to have all the URLs for the blog app. Then at the high level, we are going to tell our project about the existence of these apps and their routes. So that's what we are going to try right now. And I hope no one is getting confused. That is why I took my time to go the path that I went. We already saw the reason why we did this. If we had just one app, this would have been like an ideal way for us to approach it. But now we are having multiple apps, so this will not be ideal. And before I forget, we have created a new app called Blog, but we are yet to tell our project that we created a new app called Blog. How do we do that? How do we tell our project that we have a new app called Blog?
The settings file,
Okay,
settings.py.
so yep. And we come in here and we add. So remember the comma. The comma is very important. At least pay attention to the rest. Then we call blog here. Save this. Now we have installed the app that we created. So our project is now aware of that. But within them, the urls.py now is empty. The easiest way to go about it, come here and copy what you have here and paste it in both. Very easy. You can go ahead and clean up this. You may not need it again. And will not need this. So in fact, even for can clean up a lot more. We don't need this admin. And we don't need this. And we do not need all of this. Maybe we would look at them shortly. Okay, so this is what it needs to look like, right? We can do same with this by deleting that and maybe delete all of this. Okay. Yep. So all that I've done so far, this is the project level. At the project level, this is what we have, which works fine. But now we are transitioning to this and that. So all that we are going to do is instead of having every one of them in here like we did, let me just so we still have access to it and we can come back to it, do this, and we call this URL patterns. URL patterns is equal to, so we are going to add new ones. Obviously, this needs to be there so that we can access the admin. Remember, this is at the project level inside the my company directory. That's where we are working right now. This particular file is what we are working on right now. The next thing to do is just to add the base URL to the app itself. So base URL to blog app. Then we can also add base URL to pages app. That is what we can do. So instead of writing every individual URL to every single view, this time around at the project level, we just give the URL to the blog and URL to pages. Okay, hope that makes sense. So we can start, but to do that, let's read the instruction here. Here, what we are doing now is initially we're using just the function views directly. But here, what we are doing is we are including another URL of conf because we have another configuration of URL here. What this is actually doing, maybe I should try sketching this out to make more sense. So initially, this is what we had. Initially, we had only an app called Pages, right? And this Pages app had various views. So say V1, V2, V3, representing home, about us, contact us, and the likes. And in the My Company project, we were registering the URL patterns. And when we registered them, we had to list every one of them. So we listed for home, we listed for about us, we listed for contact us. And what was happening was that we're directing them directly to every individual one. So this was going directly to that. This was going directly to this. And this was going directly to that. And we had a fourth one, but let's manage this for now. Currently, the thing has changed in that we have multiple apps. Now we have the Pages app, and we also have the blog app. So putting all of them together in just one URL pattern list is going to make it difficult for us to follow. So what we are doing is that when we come to the main project, which is My Company project, the URL pattern that we are using, the URL pattern that we are now using or we are about to create will be one that we go and start and say, okay, for pages, if the person wants pages, direct them to this page, right? Then if the person is looking for blog, direct them to this. But when you come to the app itself, pages itself, it also has its own URL pattern, which will now determine which view to give. So we'll in here create home and link it to the home view here and say, okay, if somebody starting from here, remember the main entry point is that of our project URL pattern. So if somebody is saying /pages, we are taking them here. And that means that they are looking for at least a view that is relating to pages. But we have to come here and check with in here with them and find out the exact one they are looking for. So maybe they want contact, then that will link to the contact page. Then they want services. This will link to the services page through the view. In the same way, maybe they want blog one. That would take them to the view for blog one. If they want blog two, that will take them to the view for blog two. I hope you see the difference. I hope so. That in the first place, we had every one of them just listed under the URL pattern for the project itself, and it was going directly to them. But now we are saying that we may have multiple apps. So let's segregate each of them so that we just write the names of the apps here, not like names, but the base URL of the apps here. And now it would send them to the app itself. And within the app, we have configuration for the URLs. So that is when the actual connection to a view will take place. It will check it here before connecting to a view. And this will enable us to easily manage even if we have thousands of apps. And in fact, when we are working with, at least I learned this the hard way, working with something like Express.js, nobody tells you about these things. But I realized quickly that one big application, you have so many routes and you are struggling to even figure out where which route is and all of that. So being able to segregate your routes is like the best thing that you can do for yourself. So this is like the ideal way. What we are going to do right now is the ideal way for us to approach it. Any questions so far? Any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, let's move on. So now we are going with the third option that says that including another URL conf. This is what you need to do. You have to import include function from Django.urls import include, then path. But you realize that by default, path is already being imported from Django.url. So all we need to do now is to add include. So comma include. That's all we need to do. Then the next line says that add a URL to the URL patterns. And this is how you do it. This is path. Let's copy that and show you how you're going to do that. So for the blog app, at least that's the example they gave us. Say path blog slash, then include. This blog here is representing the name of your app. In the same way, if I want my pages, I have to also come here and say maybe pages, and this will be pages.ur. Remember that this blog is what? Something is wrong somewhere. What is it? Why is this red? Was not closed. Okay, sorry guys. Sometimes common mistakes freaks me out. Yeah, so now we don't need this any longer, but I want you to pay attention here. This pages that I've written here is actually coming from the app called Pages. And remember, my company understands that Pages is actually an app installed here. So if you haven't added it, it wouldn't understand that. But for as long as you have added it, then it now knows that Pages is an app installed on this particular project. Blog is also an app installed on this project. So when you come to the urls.py, by saying include pages.urls, all that you are saying is that go into Pages and now include the pattern that will be created here. So these ones, bring them there, include them under the URLs for your projects. I hope that makes sense. So just by doing this, we have now captured the base URL for our Pages app, and this captures the base URL for our blog app. Okay, let's try this. So let's come to Pages. Let's go back to Pages and fix it. So in here, maybe I should copy one of this to make it easy. URL in here. Now we do not need these views to import. The views is directly within this directory. So previously we needed to import the pages. So when I was in the my company directory, I needed to say from pages import, then I imported the views. But right now I am within the same pages directory that I'm working from. So I can say from dots, then I import from dots means from this current package that we are in. We are already in pages. So I can say from dots import, then I'll import views. I hope this makes sense. Then this can maintain views dot about. Let's see if everything is working. If everything is working, go back to here. the URLs. Oh, of company. Sorry, I want company. Yeah. So if everything is working, we should have pages/about should be able to take us to where we want to go to. That is the about view. Pages/about. Remember that now this is the base. So we'd have to come to pages/about. So let's try this out to see. Slash pages/about. And oh, the server is not up. Let's run the server. Okay, let's run the server. It's up now. And yeah, so we get about us page. That means everything is working fine for now. But if we go to about/contact, it's not going to work. The reason it's not working is that we tried admin/, we tried blog/, we tried pages, and the only other thing after pages that was available was pages and about. So we don't have contact. That means that we are here to put in the pattern for contact. So let's come and create the pattern for contact. Just say contact / then the views dot contact, we call it contact, then we need to give it a name, right? We call this contact. I think we should just go and copy what we had. Okay, so now if this reloads, we find our contact as page. We had two more, so let's do that for, I'll just duplicate this and we call this the home. This will be home. You call this services, and this will be services. And the name here would also be services. Let's call this home. I hope no one is getting confused. Okay, so we have the same patterns here, but now when you go to my company, we have the base here. So the base was pages. If you want it that way, then this is how you approach it. So you can go to services, we can go to home. Good. But maybe we do not want pages to show. So if we don't want pages to show, we can decide to ignore this and save that. That means that the default base slash home slash about slash all of that will take us to where we are looking to go. So let's see. No, we don't have pages. And you see that now it's looking for admin, it's looking for blog, it's looking for about, contact, home, services. There's no pages because we have made this empty. And for this to work, we need to get rid of these pages here and say /home takes us to the home page, /about take us to the about page, /services as well will take us to the services page. I hope this is making sense. Let me pause here and see if there are any questions that you have. So yeah, any questions? Are you guys here? Why is everyone quiet?
No
Yeah.
questions from my side. Everything is going on very, very smoothly.
Okay, good. So please give me my hallelujah and amen. Thank you. God bless you.
Amen, Doc.
Ah, people, you don't want me to be preaching here.
Jehovah.
Hmm. Hello, Chioma. I hope you are doing well. All right. So yeah, let's go. Let's go. Think it's going well. Okay. I think one more thing I want to try is come here instead of home, because your default home page, you may not want somebody to write /home. So we can get rid of this so that by default, it should take us to the home page. Let's get rid of all of this. And yeah, by default, it takes us to the home page. So today's assignment is for you to go replicate this such that it's assuming that you've built a website for a client, and this website has what we call the 4 pages: the home page, the contact us page, the about us page, and the services page, as well as blog. And if I do slash about, it should take me to the about us page. If I do slash contact, it should take me to the contact us page. If I do slash blog, it's not found. Why is the case? Slash blog is not found. Here it says that we have admin, we have about, we have contacts, we have home, we have services. We don't have about. But I thought we added about. Okay. So now let's debug this. We added about here. Hey, why am I saying about? Blog, sorry. We added blog here. So why is it saying that blog cannot be found? There's no match for blog. But you and I know that we added blog here. Okay.
What about the app? The settings, is it there?
Yeah, we have done that already. So this is it. It's here
Okay.
in the settings. So now let's go to blog itself and open the urls.py, and the pattern is empty.
Oh, it's
So
empty.
it's not getting anything. Remember, this is pattern. If it finds the relevant pattern, then it gives us something. All right, so let's see for this. Let me just copy one of this to make it easy. And we need to import from this particular location. Let's import the views. Okay. And do we have anything called home? I doubt. What did we call? So go to views. We called it blog. Okay. So we need to call blog. Okay. And this we would call blog. All right. And let's see if now everything is going to work fine. Refresh this and voila, it's working. So some of these things, sometimes when you are just doing it and everything is going fine, you don't get to learn some of the tricks. What if something breaks? Okay, so some of these things you need to learn them by, I mean, sometimes not intentional, you learn, but the more you do, the more likely you are to run into troubles, figure out things, and do debug, and that is where you gain experience. Very important. Okay, so now we have this, but you know that for the blog, maybe we have thousands of blogs. How do we handle it if the person wants to access like the article name or article with ID 22? Now it's giving us errors. Maybe there are thousands of articles on this site. We want to be able to rate each of them. These things that you add to the URL, they are called the parameters. How can we intercept or grab these parameters and use them? So let's look at that and we'll figure out how to add those ones. So when it comes to writing our view, initially we said that the view function takes in a request parameter and returns a response parameter. Let me not call it a parameter. It returns a response, right? The other thing that you can do is you can let this blog take in, or let me not say this blog, you can let any view function take in other parameters, and these parameters are the ones that you are providing in the URL. So for now, let's say we want article ID as a URL parameter, article ID. And what we are going to do is maybe here, instead of just, I hope you guys are aware of f strings in Python. Instead of saying blog, we'll
Sure.
say blog, then we pass the article ID here. So now we are looking at how to have a parameter in your URL and be able to capture it and use it for any relevant purpose. So sometimes the user ID is in the URL and you may want to cross-check something or maybe a specific product. Like when we advance to building other tools or other platforms or web apps, you would see the relevance of this. But for now, just know if somebody is inputting a parameter, there is a possibility that we get the parameter within our view and use it for anything that we want to use it for. Okay. So how then do we actually get it? Now we have come here, we've written all of this, but our URL isn't even aware that we are coming with that parameter, right? Let me think I've lost my chain of thought right now. Let's see. Okay. This and that. And the URL. Yeah. So inside here, currently, we haven't indicated that we are taking in any parameters for that matter, right? So we may have to indicate it here. We said our parameter that is coming is called article underscore ID. So if we come here, we have to tell it exactly that, oh, in the URL, this parameter that follows is called the article article ID. That's how we called it, right? Maybe to simplify things, let's try instead of just base posts, because we want to say the blog may be like the main archive. I mean, it's all possible, but whatever. We can go ahead and do this. So we use the type in Python, is it called type annotation, I think, to force it that whatever it is coming, because by default, this will be passed as a string, but we want to force it into an integer because sometimes, especially if it's an ID that you are using to cross-check the database, it has to be an integer. So we say int, then you give it the name, okay, like that. So what this means is that after post, we expect that the next thing will be the integer, which is the ID, which is article. So if we don't want, I mean, we can even get rid of this post thing. Can get rid of posts and have it as just the integer so that we don't have to go to post. So it's able to pick this. But all that I'm saying is that this particular thing, number that you've written, which is 22, by default, it is being shown as a string. But most of the time, especially if it is an ID, you would want to have it as an integer because you may be cross-checking it against an integer from a database. So I'm using the type annotation in Python to force it to an integer. And this is how we do it in Django. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Let's save this and now run it. And hopefully that works. Says block 22. Change this to 1. And it says, oh, I changed it to 12 instead. 1. And it says block 1. Change it to 54. And it says block 54. Do you guys see what is happening right now? So,
Sure.
yeah, great. Thank you. In order for us to grab the parameter, we needed to add that in our view function and say, okay, this is our view function. Article underscore ID is the parameter that we are grabbing, but then it should also be captured in the URL. Remember, this is telling us the pattern that if somebody enters something that looks like this, direct them to this particular view. And once we have this format, all we are saying is that we are converting that article ID that you are going to write into what is it called? Into an integer. And now when we come to our views, we are able to pass this integer. You can use it for anything like, oh, this article ID, you go and search the database and pick the specific article and now showcase the article. So this is how we use the URL and the views together. And I hope that I've taken it slowly enough for you all to appreciate it. There's the last thing that I would want to cover before we leave. And in our next session, which the date is yet to be determined, but I would communicate it as soon as we determine that date. We'll look at models and templates. Okay, so let me pause here and get any questions answered. If you have any questions on what we have done so far, and your assignment is to try everything that we have done. So this is you creating a company website. The company website has what we call the home page, the about us page, the contact us, the services page, and it has a blog page. And on the blog page too, we can have these ones, the parameters that they can enter the article ID for you to take them to the specific article that they are looking for. So that is the assignment. I hope that is clear enough. Any questions? I need to bring you people here so that I see
Hello,
who is.
Doc.
Hi. Yep.
Right. I wanted to ask the forward slash we have before our ID. Is it how did we get it there? Oh, that's how it works.
The forest.
No, in the URL. In the URL we have from our page.
Yeah. So I put it there. If you take it away, it means you've written block 2 and you don't have any path called block 2. You get it?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, so
But
here,
I don't know, I don't remember where we placed or indicated it in
in
our
our
post.
okay. So in the code, it's coming from your base URL that you have in your company, my company URLs.py. So you remember that here you had slash after blog. And I said in Django, anytime you create a URL, you have to end it with slash. So that if I go to the blog URLs, I don't have to bring another slash here. That means now I have double slash because I ended that blog. Remember that this is just what is actually happening. Let me go back to that. Yeah. What is actually happening here is that we have this blog like that. We have it this way and this being joined to it. This is what is happening. So if you are working in any other language, you see, let's say JavaScript, you see that we usually do something like that. You see it in this format. So you have your base URL, whatever your base URL is, then that would be slash blog, then column slash column this. Okay. So in Python or in Django, as you are seeing it right now, you already have created this in the project level, at the project level. And at the app level, you have this here. So if I come here and I put another slash, what I've done is that I have these two. And that is not valid. That's not a good way to write URLs. So you don't have to do that. But remember that you always, so even this, I have to end it with that. So that if there is another pattern that will follow after it, it will just be added after the slash. Does that make sense?
Yes, Doc. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep. Any other question? Any other question? Or you people are sleeping today?
Oh, no, it's quite for mine.
Okay.
It's quite okay. Like
Okay.
good.
Good to hear. All right. So I guess it's time to do the last bit and jump to our assignment. Please let me add a new page. Okay. So there's something called HTTP methods. HTTP methods. See, some of these things are not specific to any framework or programming language. They are general stuff that you need to be aware of for as long as you are doing any sort of web development. And last session that we held, I spoke at length about some of these things, right? So please pay attention to this one as well. And if you don't fully get the HTTP response request response cycle, please go back to that session and try to understand it, or use any other resource that you have available to you and try to get a good understanding of it. You can't be like a web dev. You can't be creating web apps and websites if you don't understand this. Otherwise, you just be copying and pasting from what others have written. So these are the things that we really need to understand so that anytime we are building tools, we know exactly what is happening, especially behind the scene, what is going on. So we have what we call the HTTP methods. Anytime you make a request, the type of request goes with a specific type of method. And the method, the HTTP method that you use will determine how your logic will be applied. A very common example of this, or let me mention the most common ones that you may come across. There are a lot of them, but we just focus on the common ones that you come across or you would need in your own applications. We have the get method, we have the post method, we have the delete method, we have the put method, and we have patch method. These are like the common ones that you worry your head around. If any of you has used a tool like Postman before, you would have come to appreciate this. And tender clients, you would also come to appreciate this. So these are things when you are making requests to any server to get something, once it is over the internet, you are using the HTTP protocol. These are the methods that you are allowed to use. And depending on the method, the behavior is a bit different. So you need to understand what each method is and when to use it. So if for nothing at all, you need to understand these 5 methods and when to use what. Because when you're building any back end of any application, you have to consider these 5. The get method is used to, as the name suggests, get stuff from the server. So if all that you are interested in is going to the server and grabbing things and bringing to you, the client or the browser or the mobile app, then you have to use a get method. So by default, when you put anything in the browser, the URL that you put in there, by default, it goes with a get request, because all that it is looking for is to go and get something from the server and bring it to you, the client that you are using the browser or the mobile app. So all the requests that we have done so far, remember that is get method. So let me show you. If we go to this home page and we are doing this, when I hit enter here, I'm actually sending an HTTP get request to our server. And our server understands that, oh, this is a get request, and therefore is going to do what it's supposed to do. And by default, that's what we get. So we don't have any issues. Okay. Now, if we rather want to send something, we want to send data from the clients, which is the browser or the mobile app that we are using as our front end, to the server. You want to save, for instance, you want to save data to the database. Say you have a registration form and somebody is going to input their details and you're going to now store these details in a database. Then you need a post request, not a get request. So a get request will get you data from the database or the server. But if you want to send information there, then you have to use the post request. So if you don't learn about anything at all today, please remember these two things. Get is the request when you are getting something from the server. But if you ever want to send something there, then you are going to have to use the post. In fact, whenever you are building stuff like this, say an API or the backend of any application, we call something, others pronounce it crude, others also pronounce it crud. However, you pronounce it depending on who taught you English or where you learned English, it's fine with me. Where C is for create, R is for read, U is for update, and D is for delete. So almost anytime when you are building stuff, this is a very important thing that you are going to be doing. So you're going to be creating things. And if you are creating, that means you are storing things in the database, you are saving stuff. That would be in relation with the post request. If you are reading, you are just getting stuff. So that is in line with the get request. Then delete, which is sounds obvious. If you want to delete something from the server or your database or anything, like once you are interested in deleting, you use the delete request or the delete method. Put and patch are for updating stuff, but they behave a bit different, slightly. There is a difference in how they work. So put actually means song lyrics. Thank you very much. Says this guy needs more support. Anyway, thank you. Yeah. So put means that let me try and explain. Put and patch. You guys know what patch is. If I tell you to patch something, it means that just some part of it where maybe something is not working, right? Those of you who own bicycles and motorbikes, you know how to patch your tires, right? I used to do that a lot when I was young. So the patch is when you want to update something, but you are not updating everything. It's just some portion of the data that you want to update. Then you use patch. But if I want to update everything, then I use put. So the two of them are for updating stuff. If you want to update just some part of it, you use patch. If you want to update all the part of it, all of it, then use put. As simple as that. Get to get stuff, post to post things to the server, or send stuff to the server, or store things on the server, delete to delete stuff. Put is when I want to update everything, and patch is when I want to update just some portion of it. So when we come to our Django, how does this apply? By default, in our views by default, we are using get. So if we have not said anything about it, it is automatically using get. But in here, we can run a logic and check if request dot method, if request dot method is equal to get, we want to do a particular thing. Say, let's pass. Else if request dot method, let's say method is equal to post, then we also want to do another thing. So for instance, we can have the same URL and we say that if the person is using the get, it means that we are just trying to get something. Say for instance, our blog.url, our blog. So here, all that I'm saying is we can have this get to be for us to get the specific article for this user, right? But if it is a post, then what we want to do, we want to create a new article with this ID. Okay. In the same way, if let's say it is request the method is equal to say puts, what does that mean? We are interested in updating every information about that particular article. So update the article. And finally, if it is request dot method is equal to then say delete, we can go ahead and what will we do? Delete that article. So delete this article. I hope this makes sense. So anytime I'm making a request, you may have to check what request method, HTTP request method we are using. And I've told you this view can be as big as possible. It's just a Python function and it can play server. You can do server logic in here. One of them is checking the request method and taking a specific action depending on the particular request method that is being used. And I've explained what each of these does. I hope that makes a lot of sense, and we probably can pause here for questions before we finally finish everything. But yeah, any questions? Chat, let me see in the chats. Imagine a box of Legos when I've never, I know, right? Sometimes ChatGPT can give you some. I remember I was trying to understand a particular concept and I asked ChatGPT and it was talking about building snow castles and things. I'm like, huh? I don't even know what you are talking about. Yeah, song lyrics, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, so guys, that's it for the methods. These are very important, especially if you are working on the back end. Mostly when you are doing just the you are the end user, when you are using the application itself, you don't get to see these things. You don't get to see how these are working. But if you are the front end developer to any application, before you make a request to the API, you have to know whether you're making a get request or you're making a post request or a put request. See, even here, we can restrict it such that only get request comes through or only post request comes through or only any of them, or we allow a particular number of them. So we can decide that we are not going to allow any delete request. That means that nobody can delete something in here, right? And you always have to make sure you're using the right method for the right thing. Don't use a get method to create or store things. And it's going to even be difficult because, for instance, if you say get, mostly you are not able to pack some data with it. If you are going with a post, you can pack some data with it because it's post. So let's say the information that the person has entered in the form, you are posting that to the database. So you need that data that the person has entered to be able to post it. And very soon, when we start looking at, after we have done models and templates, we can now be able to build our own like a good application for somebody to even sign in and all of that. But for now, I think up to this level is okay. You know how to create a Django project. You know how to create an app. You know how to create the view functions. You know how to connect the URLs. You know how to install your apps. Those are the basis of Django. The next important thing is for us to understand models, templates, and how to use them. And we'll tackle that in the next session. So I'm reading a question on YouTube. Song lyrics says, say there is a functionality to update a teacher's name. Should I use put or patch? The teacher table, for example, has a lot of other attributes. Yeah, so if it's just some portion of it, then you want to use patch to do that. But if let's say you want to override everything that is there, even if I mean these things usually you can use put for almost anything. For as long as you have all the data for all the other attributes that are available. For as long as you have the data, you can use it. But then you do not want to do that if it is just the name that you want to update. So if you are not bothered about all the other parameters, then you use patch to update just the name. But if you want to rewrite everything, then you use put. Yep. All right. So I think we are good. So those of you on YouTube, I'm about to end the stream. And yeah, so if you are not aware, I've created a WhatsApp group and that's I post the information about when we are about to go live. So if you want to, let me just type in the YouTube chat, you can join the WhatsApp group. In fact, I said that it gives me a problem trying to share to everyone. So I'm looking at using WhatsApp channel and a Telegram channel where I post all the announcements. Because now I'm getting so many groups and it's worrying me. As an invite. Okay, yeah. So those of you on
Hello, Doc.
YouTube, yeah, please go ahead. I've dropped the link on YouTube. You can check. Yes, please go ahead.
I have a question from the last class.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm facing a problem from when installing the Django
Okay.
from the I think from the manage.py. It says, may I share my screen?
Yep. Hold on. Let me stop sharing and give you permissions to share. Yeah. Yep. You can share your screen.
Okay.
Right.
So here in the manage.py,
Yeah.
in line 11, it gives me error. It says from django.core.management.
Yeah.
It says import django.core.management cannot be resolved from source while runs
Mm.
module
Yeah.
management.
Yeah. But did they give you any other issue apart from the error that you are seeing here? Like this is more of a warning. Have you had any issue with running anything?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see that. Because
But,
these ones I think are normal. I see them on my own as well. I've never paid attention to it. So yeah,
okay.
let me see whatever the specific issue that you're having is.
Think when I search import those inf, it says gives me an error.
Yeah. But have you tried doing it to the end, like using it and seeing whether it works or it doesn't work?
No, but
Yeah,
it,
so if
so
it
is
for
this
as
just
long
a
as
warning?
yes, for as long as it is installed, it will work and you wouldn't need to worry much about it. So try it, and if it doesn't work, then that's when we have a cause for concern. But yeah, I've also experienced it. I want to believe almost everyone else experiences it, especially when you are in a Windows environment. So you may have to just go ahead and do it.
Okay. Thank you.
I think when we were doing it, I also had the same issue. Let me check my code base. Right now it's not showing, but yeah, I think manage.py. Let's go there. Okay. Right now it's not showing. Yeah, but you go ahead, run it, and if you have any issues with it, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to assist. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Thanks.
it's confirmed that you're not the only one.
Mm.
All right. Pretty cool. Okay, so as I was saying, if you're watching on YouTube, you can join. It's ehoneah.com/swm-invite. You can join the WhatsApp group from there, and I would be doing the announcements on when to meet. But I've also mentioned that this is just the beginning. I want to be able to teach as many technologies as possible, and hopefully, we are able to run these sessions as often as possible. So we need to speed up with Django. I saw a comment on YouTube says, please, October, you know my Django career depends on you. Make this Django series often so that I can learn Django fast. I also want to learn Django fast too. The truth of the matter is I don't already know Django. Like this is me learning and teaching. You have to understand. Right. But the problem is mostly with the time that I'm available because I am mostly available in the evening and that evening is dawn for most of you. So that is the problem. But hey, let's try. Between this coming week and next week as well, I'm running an HTML and CSS bootcamp. So my times these afternoons in terms of 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. are usually busy because I'll be teaching over there. Aside that, it means our next meeting, I was thinking about Sunday, but Sunday is a special day for me. I don't know if I'll be available to come online and teach. So not sure about it. Monday I'll be running that bootcamp. So hopefully that should be like I need to stop the YouTube. Sorry. So guys, if you're on YouTube, we are just having a conversation. We are done with the stream. And I'll see you guys in the next session. Join the WhatsApp group and I'll post any information there. Okay, so stop